What if I told you some of the worst shows in TV history were born from your childhood favorites? For every Frasier or The Jeffersons, there are a dozen failed experiments we've all tried to forget, until now. Grab your tab, fluff your hair, and join me for the 25 most embarrassing 1980s TV spin-offs you blocked out. Living Dolls. Remember Who's the Boss? That sweet sitcom with Tony Danza playing the world's most wholesome live-in housekeeper? Someone at ABC thought, what if we took Alyssa Milano's character, Samantha, and built an entire show around teenage models? Enter Living Dolls. Alyssa Milano's Sam visits a modeling agency, befriends tough girl Charlie Briscoe, and by episode's end, the agency's maternal boss takes Charlie under her wing. Halle Berry made her TV debut, but the show ditched its Who's the Boss? Roots rewrote half the relationships and basically became a parade of teen drama cliches. Critics pounced. The writing was shallow, the cast underused, and even Halle Berry's star power couldn't save it from the TV graveyard after just 13 episodes. The Tortellis. Cheers is often ranked among the best sitcoms of all time, so of course NBC wanted a piece of that sweet, sweet spin-off action. But they skipped Frasier and went straight to Carla's sleazy ex-husband, Nick Tortelli, played by Dan Hedaya, and his ditzy wife, Loretta. Why? We'll never know. Nick was funny for 3 minutes at a time, but anchoring a show on his greasy antics was like making a Seinfeld spin-off about Newman. They moved to Vegas to run a TV repair shop, adding wacky relatives no one cared about. It was all dysfunction, zero charm. The laugh track tried hard, but nobody was laughing. After 13 episodes, NBC wisely cut their losses. Checking in. Florence Johnston, the no-nonsense maid from The Jeffersons, had sass and catchphrases to spare. CBS gave her a promotion, and her own show, Checking In, where Florence becomes the executive housekeeper at a fancy Manhattan hotel. Sounds like a recipe for fish-out-of-water fun, right? Wrong. Stripped of George Jefferson's banter, Florence floundered amid a bunch of bland new characters and sitcom scenarios so desperate, one episode involved a guest's pet goat. After just 4 episodes, the show was mercifully canceled. Florence returned to The Jeffersons with no mention of her absence. The audience agreed to pretend it never happened. The hotel burned down, metaphorically and literally. Gloria. All in the Family was groundbreaking. Its spin-offs were legit hits. But Gloria, starring Sally Struthers as Archie Bunker's daughter, proved the family tree had a rotten branch. Divorced from Meathead and starting over as a veterinary assistant in upstate New York, Gloria was stripped of everything that made her pop. Family feuds, social satire, even her iconic dad. The show threw in Burgess Meredith as a crusty mentor, but without Archie's fire or Mike's debate, Gloria just wandered through single mom sitcom tropes. Poignant, sometimes, mostly just tedious. After one season, CBS put this bunker out to pasture. Flo. Kiss My Grits. Flo was the wisecracking, bouffant-haired waitress who stole the show on Alice. CBS thought her sass could anchor her own series, so they sent Flo back to Texas to run a roadhouse. On paper, this had potential. In practice, it was a masterclass in how to turn a beloved sidekick into an annoying lead. Flo's zingers got old fast, the supporting cast was a revolving door, and the magic of Mel's Diner was nowhere to be found. Episodes featured Flo entering mechanical bull contests and wrangling cartoonish barflies. Audiences quickly tired of the Yellow Rose, and after 2 shortened seasons, the network pulled the plug. The Ropers. Stanley and Helen Roper were nosy, hilarious neighbors on Three's Company, perfect in small doses. So naturally, ABC spun them off into the center of their own show, moving them to an upscale community where they didn't fit in. The result? Every episode was a rehash of Stanley's cheapness and Helen's frustrated libido. What was funny in 5-minute bursts became unbearable at full length. Ratings plummeted in the 2nd season, and to add insult to injury, Norman Fell's contract prevented him from returning to Three's Company. By the end, even die-hard fans were happy to forget the Ropers ever left their apartment. Kelly's Kids. The Brady Bunch was all about family harmony. So, why not take that idea even further? In Kelly's Kids, a backdoor pilot, The Kellys adopted 3 boys from different racial backgrounds. The show wanted to tackle big social issues, but did so with the subtlety of a marching band. Every scene was an after-school special lesson, and the writing lacked the warmth and humor of the original. Viewers weren't clamoring for a Brady spin-off with no actual Bradys, and even in the progressive 70s, this felt painfully forced. Unsurprisingly, Kelly's Kids was never picked up. Fenster Hall. Remember the Punky Brewster finale, when Punky and Henry visit Fenster Hall, an orphanage with a cast of wacky kids and a warm-hearted counselor? NBC thought this would be the next Goonies meets Different Strokes. It was a backdoor pilot starring T.K. Carter as Mike, who had the heart and comedic chops to make something work, if only the script gave him a chance. Instead, audiences got a parade of broad stereotypes, too many new faces, and forced sentimentality. Fenster Hall never became a series, and most viewers barely remember it as a footnote in Punky's story. NBC wisely chose to keep their orphans to 1 per show. Jackie Harry won an Emmy for her role as Sandra Clark, the glamorous, sassy neighbor on 227. She was a breakout star, so why not send Sandra off to the big city for her own show? In a Season 4 backdoor pilot, Sandra moves to New York for a new job and a new cast of characters. The problem? The magic of 227 was in its ensemble. The spin-off failed to establish Sandra as a lead, the supporting cast lacked chemistry, and the writing went from zippy to zany. Sandra returned to 227 as a guest, but Jackie never made it back to the main cast. Friend of the family, here's one you probably forgot. My Two Dads had a backdoor pilot in its first season called Friend of the Family. Nicole's pal Corey and his brother Roy get into trouble, and Ed, the gruff diner owner, becomes a father figure, while also romancing their single mom. The setup felt more like a Hallmark movie than a sitcom, and the new characters lacked the odd couple dynamic that made My Two Dads fun. Ed wasn't really compelling as a lead, and neither was the blended family subplot. The pilot aired, no one cared, and that was that. After MASH. Imagine taking one of the most beloved, pitch-perfect TV finales of all time and undoing its closure with a cash-in spin-off. That's After MASH, where Colonel Potter, Klinger, and Father Mulcahy work at a stateside veterans hospital. Gone were the stakes, the chemistry, and the dark comedy. In their place, hospital bureaucracy and fish-out-of-water gags. Even die-hard MASH fans tuned out as the show tried to juggle serious issues with sitcom hijinks. The writers never found a new identity, and ratings collapsed. By Season 2, CBS was done. The series was quickly pulled, and MASH's perfect legacy was safe, mostly. Joni Loves Chachi. Ah, the spin-off everyone loves to hate. Happy Days launched 1,000 side projects, but Joni Loves Chachi stands out for its spectacular crash. Joni and her musician boyfriend Chachi moved to Chicago to pursue stardom, but without the Fonz, Richie, or the diner, it all fell flat. The music wasn't good, the jokes felt tired, and the supporting cast never gelled. Even a prime slot after Happy Days couldn't save them. Ratings were so bad that Joni and Chachi were quietly shipped back to Milwaukee, and the whole thing was buried under a mountain of what were they thinking jokes. The Bradys. You like the Brady Bunch, right? How about The Bradys, a 1980s reboot where the family faces adult issues like alcoholism, infertility, and Bobby's tragic racing accident? Wait, what? That's right. America's favorite Sunshine family went very special episode every week in this hour-long drama. The tone was all wrong. Viewers wanted wholesome hijinks, not melodrama about divorce and drunk driving. The cast tried gamely, but no one was tuning in to see Greg Brady's marital woes or Cindy as a cynical DJ. 6 episodes later, the Bradys were canceled, and fans begged for reruns of the original, where problems were solved with hugs and a song. Enos. Roscoe P. Coltrane's lovable deputy Enos Strait was never the sharpest tool in the Hazard County shed, but CBS decided to spin him off anyway, straight into the LAPD. Fish out of water? Sure. Funny? Not so much. Enos's aw shucks routine didn't translate to big city crime, and his charm evaporated without the Duke boys. The show's scripts tried to blend slapstick with police drama, and the result was a muddled mess. After 1 season of car chases and canned laughter, Enos was sent back to Hazard, where he belonged, and the LAPD saga was conveniently forgotten. The Facts of Life Down Under. Let's be honest, The Facts of Life spun off from Different Strokes and outlasted it, but even it wasn't immune to embarrassing missteps. The Facts of Life Down Under was a TV movie sending the girls to Australia for culture clash adventures, and, rumor had it, testing the waters for a possible overseas spin-off. The result? Lots of kangaroo jokes, fish-out-of-water hijinks, and forced romance. Viewers tuned in for Blair, Tootie, and the gang, not for half-baked travelogue plots. There was no spin-off, but there was plenty of second-hand embarrassment. The Girl from UNCLE. Back in the 60s, The Man from UNCLE was a hit, and a short-lived girl-powered version followed. In the 1980s, networks tried reviving the spy brand with a new Girl from UNCLE pilot that was meant to reboot the classic but landed with a thud. The concept? Glamorous female agent April Dancer saves the world with martial arts and mod fashion. The execution? Dated jokes, limp action, and none of the Bond-style swagger. Test audiences shrugged, critics rolled their eyes, and UNCLE went back to the Cold War. Even in reruns, this one is hard to find, and harder to watch. Private Benjamin. The original Private Benjamin movie made Goldie Hawn a superstar. So, what could go wrong turning it into a sitcom? Turns out, everything. Lorna Patterson stepped into Hawn's boots, but the scripts were stuck in basic training. Every episode was a rehash of snobby city girl meets army misfits, and the spark that made the movie work just fizzled. Despite a promising cast, including Eileen Brennan reprising her Oscar-nominated role, the show was lost in a sea of Gomer Pyle retreads and never found its audience. After 2 seasons, the network honorably discharged it. Sanford. Fred Sanford, as played by Red Fox, was one of TV's greatest comic curmudgeons. But after Sanford and Son ended, NBC tried to keep the magic alive with Sanford. The problem? No Lamont. Instead, Fred got a new business partner and a parade of supporting characters who never clicked. The original's chemistry was gone, and so were the laughs. The writers recycled old gags and hoped Fox's mugging could carry the show. Audiences disagreed, and after 2 short seasons, Fred Sanford was finally put out to sitcom pasture, leaving us all to remember the good old days. Mr. Smith. File this one under What Were They Thinking? Mr. Smith starred an orangutan. Yes, an actual orangutan, who drinks a serum, becomes a genius, learns to talk, and promptly becomes a political consultant in Washington, D.C. I'm not making this up. The show was so bizarre that critics thought NBC was playing a prank. The ape couldn't really talk, the lip-syncing was atrocious, and the jokes were even worse. Ratings nosedived, but the network kept it on the air for 13 painful episodes before quietly erasing all evidence. Today, Mr. Smith is remembered only by TV historians and anyone who had fever dreams after watching too much late-night cable. Wizards and Warriors, medieval knights, bumbling wizards, rubber monsters, and more foam than a bathtub. What could possibly go wrong? CBS's Wizards and Warriors tried to blend fantasy adventure with sitcom snark, starring Jeff Conaway as a hapless prince and Julia Duffy as his would-be princess. The special effects were laughable, the humor hit and miss, and the budget reportedly ballooned to near mythical proportions. 8 episodes and $8 million later, CBS pulled the plug. The sets were torn down before the cast even knew the show was canceled. Today it's a cult oddity, a glimpse at what happens when Dungeons & Dragons meets dad joke writers. Manimal. You know a show is in trouble when its name becomes a late-night punchline. Manimal featured Simon McCorkindale as Dr. Jonathan Chase, a British professor with the supernatural ability to turn into any animal. Unfortunately, budget cuts meant he mostly morphed into a panther or hawk, and always via the same stock footage. The transformations, courtesy of effects wizard Stan Winston, were impressive and a little terrifying, but the plots were as thin as the premise. NBC promoted the heck out of it, then yanked it after 8 episodes. Letterman made it a running gag, and Manimal slunk off into TV obscurity. The Powers of Matthew Starr. Aliens were hot in the 80s, so NBC introduced The Powers of Matthew Starr, about a teenage alien prince hiding on Earth as a high schooler. Production was cursed. Star Peter Barton was seriously injured by pyrotechnics. Scripts were constantly reworked, and the show abruptly changed direction mid-season. Suddenly, Matthew was a government agent with new powers, and even the character names changed. The series limped to the finish line, with its last episode being the original pilot as if trying to erase its own existence. The result: one of TV's most baffling sci-fi flops, forever frozen in time. Automan. Imagine Tron as a buddy cop TV show, and you've got Automan. Police computer expert Walter Nebuchar creates a holographic superhero, Automan, who fights crime at night because his light shows use too much electricity during the day. With glowing Lamborghinis, neon jumpsuits, and a floating polygon sidekick named Cursor, Automan was visually ahead of its time, but narratively a mess. ABC scheduled it opposite major hits, and audiences just weren't ready for digital crime fightings with a disco vibe. Ratings tanked, and the show was canceled before all the episodes even aired in the US. Today, it's beloved by retro geeks, and nobody else. The Phoenix. Long before ancient astronaut theories were meme material, ABC gave us the Phoenix, an immortal alien named Bennu of the Golden Light, waking up in the 1980s to help humanity. He had every power except the ability to stay on TV. ABC scheduled it against the Dukes of Hazzard and yanked it after just 4 episodes. Sci-fi fans were left with unanswered mysteries, a cool mythology, and the eternal question: why would anyone think this could compete with Fast Cars and Country Boys? The show developed a minor cult following, but the Phoenix disappeared faster than you can say Ancient Aliens. Supertrain. The king of embarrassing TV disasters, Supertrain was NBC's attempt to outlove boat the Love Boat by putting a nuclear-powered luxury train on rails, loaded with pools, discos, and endless romantic subplots. The sets alone cost $10 million, and the show's failure nearly bankrupted the network. Plots were formulaic, the cast rotated, and critics savaged it as the Love Boat on wheels, stuck on the tracks. After 9 mega-budget episodes and a costly retooling, NBC finally pulled the emergency brake. The Supertrain sets were scrapped, the show vanished, and network execs learned that sometimes you really can't buy a hit. And there you have it, 25 embarrassing spin-offs from the 1980s you probably blocked out. And for good reason. TV history is littered with forgotten flops, but let's be honest, they're half the fun of looking back. Which ones do you remember? Any spin-off disasters we missed? Drop your favorite cringe memory in the comments below. Smash that subscribe button for more TV nostalgia. And until next time, keep your catchphrases short, your premises simple, and never give an orangutan a speaking role. And there you have it, 25 embarrassing spin-offs from the 1980s you probably blocked out. And for good reason. TV history is littered with forgotten flops, but let's be honest, they're half the fun of looking back. Which ones do you remember? Any spin-off disasters we missed? Drop your favorite cringe memory in the comments below. Smash that subscribe button for more TV nostalgia. And until next time, keep your catchphrases short, your premises simple, and never give an orangutan a speaking role.